thank you all for coming. Thank you, Derek, on the phone from wherever you are in Boston. So we'll call the meeting to order and accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes of January 28th. Anyone have any questions or additions or subtractions? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve them. If anyone,
So moved, sir.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll
Public
abstain
Okay, Wendy, yeah.
with a comment that they're excellent. I'm reading them. I felt like I was here.
That's actually
Great.
cool. Doesn't get you off the hook.
We have in public comment, we have Bruce Appenstein here. We have Paul Leary here from NRTA. Anyone have anything to bring forward? Otherwise, rise up and speak anytime. Okay, Mike. It's yours now. The first part of transportation program.
Thank you. The first item is a request to approve an adjustment to the FY19 to 23 Transportation Improvement Program.
Yep.
Specifically the transit program section. That's one of the reasons Paula is here, and she can go into detail about these. But essentially, it's basically reallocating some funds from projects that were programmed into the TIP and shifting some funds to other projects that were underfunded and need to use those funds. It's to make sure that we have, a financial constraint on the projects and that they get the funding that they need. There's no added funds. There's no funds being removed from the plan. It's just calibrating the funds so that they go to each project as they need it.
Okay.
Because this is an adjustment, there's no public review period necessary. We're not adding anything new. We're not taking away anything. So what's simply needed, and also because it's only using state funds, not federal funds. So what's simply needed here is an approval of the adjustment, and to that'll authorize the chair to sign the TIP adjustment.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if not, I'll accept the motion to approve the change.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Unanimous, Eleanor. Okay, let's see, what's the next thing? Okay, Mike, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. The next item is a
Getting my favorite.
performance-based planning and programming agreement. This is an agreement between the Federal Transit Authority, Mass DOT, regional transit agencies, and NPOs. For the NPDC's part, the Secretary of Transportation will be signing on behalf of the NPOs. However, this agreement is also be executed by the RTAs. Derek's on the line. He could explain this a little bit better than I could, but essentially what this agreement is a data sharing understanding that information is to be provided to DOT, who then would provide information to the federal agencies and the NPOs related to public transportation infrastructure. And I'm going to leave it there because that's basically the limit of my understanding of the agreement, but it's essentially to establish that relationship and data sharing. And Paula can speak to this as well.
Paul, do you want to?
Yeah, that's ultimately it. It's a federal requirement.
Speak next. Okay, Derek, Paul is going to speak now. Okay.
Derek, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The NRTA is a 5311 subrecipient. And it's my understanding that the federal law for all of this did not include 5310 and 5311 recipients at this time. And they were going to figure out how to try to do that. Is that correct? Do you know if that, whatever the federal reg is, CMR or whatever, if that,
Follow up on that.
yeah, my understanding with my regional transit authority association is that the federal requirement for this did not include 5311 recipients, which the NRTA is. So I don't know exactly what that means if we will not be signing. I think this is the first step in introducing this around the Commonwealth, correct, Derek?
I believe so, yeah.
And that there'll be some other meetings throughout. But like I can share with you, when they talk about the TAM plan, which is a transit asset management plan, and like to Mike's point about sharing data, the NRTA, as did its counterparts, opted to write their own TAM plans. Not just because it sounds cool, but instead of Mass DOT writing one or sharing that information. So I did that a couple years ago. Currently, the small transit authorities that operate under 100 fewer vehicles, which we fall under, are not required at this time to develop the safety plan. I believe that I will likely opt out of DOT's plan and do my own safety plan as well. So I don't know, it's not really me to recommend, but I would, before we sign or approve anything, I would like to just get clarification, Derek, on the 5311 exception to this federal rule. If you have someone you can talk to about that.
I'm making a note now, and we can follow up with regards to that.
Have you heard from anyone else on that subject?
No, you're the only MPO that's brought that to my attention. KTC, excuse me.
Yep. Thanks.
And just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, this is just informational for this
Okay.
meeting to make you aware of the issue. I believe if it's determined that we do need to participate in the agreement, that the agreement would need to be approved at the next month's meeting in March.
Okay. Okay. So we can continue to the next one. We don't need any action. This is just information. Okay.
Now you're aware of the fund that's related
Beautiful.
to this agreement.
Okay. All right. We're on to which one now? The PWP? No, it's the number 3. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this month, I mean, this is just a continuation of the public outreach and the opportunity for the public to comment on the transportation plan development. As I'm developing the plan in coordination with other agencies, I'll share the progress with you. Just so you're aware, there are solid dates now on the calendar for this plan, and then to initiate the public review at the May 20th meeting. And we're asking that the NPC approve the final draft at the June 17th meeting. So just so you're aware of the scheduling. Between this month and the May meeting, there will be coordination with a bunch of different transportation stakeholders. So during that time period, along with updating the recommended programs and projects, there will be coordination with all the committees and agencies that have interest in the transportation planning process. I'm going to skip over a few slides and go straight to some of the work that's being worked on right now, and that's the prioritization and scoring of projects. Scoring is I included a very unreadable chart in the packet.
That's a good word to use.
But essentially, this scores on either a -1, 0, or a +1, based on as a measure of various factors, and those factors relate to condition, mobility, safety, and sustainability of each project. If a project has a lot of right-of-way impact to abutters, that'll have a -1 attribute to it. If it conforms to the regional transportation plan, it has a +1, and so on. So that's ongoing now, along with the including new projects that have been recommended through studies like the South Shore Road Traffic Study and the Old South Road Corridor Study. I have included maps of the last effort of scoring and prioritizing projects just for your informational purposes. There's scoring on roadways, bike and pedestrian facilities, and I will include some conformance with the Select Board's Goal 2 initiative to provide at least one sidewalk improvement between the Mid Island and downtown area. What I'm also trying to do is blur the line between roadway projects and bike pedestrian projects a little bit, so that we can call these perhaps complete street projects and treat them and score them as one project and not segregate them into roadway or bike pedestrian, but make it more homogeneous. Going on to public transportation improvements, there won't be a lot of differing recommendations in the plan. The existing regional transit plan already includes expansion of service to Cisco Beach and Tom Nevers. I believe those will maybe perhaps the cost estimates will be updated, but those recommendations will still be in the plan. There's also hours of service and frequency along Old South Road that's still needed. I provided a map that was done by a summer intern showing boardings and alightments along the Old South Road area, and you can see how the obviously Sconset and Town are big boarding areas and departure areas, but there are some significant activity along the Old South Road, Nobody Farm Road corridor, which is also why year-round transit is provided along this corridor. But I think the point is that hours of service and frequency is something to be considered for this area. What's also be considered is I included a slide here for the Harbor Place area, and the point of inclusion of this is that the downtown transit hub is currently located on private property, and that a more permanent transit hub should be found. Right now, it's still in very draft stages, but the Harbor Place has been reviewed by staff to see what the conformance of transit operations into that development would look like. This isn't a recommendation for you now, just to let you know that it's an ongoing discussion about finding a more permanent home. On to parking. It's in the strategic plan of the select board that there's an insufficient availability and turnover of parking in town. There's a parking benefit district and parking management program that's being considered by the select board now to achieve 80% occupancy of public spaces downtown. I believe that will be heard at and I see the chair in the very back of the room, at the March 6th select board meeting to consider the parking management portion. As far as parking opportunities and availability of parking, I've included a slide showing that the recommended, what's currently in the transportation plan, the recommended parking structure in the vicinity of downtown, and what the economics of that would be. And I've just provided a parking revenue estimate there to show that even with the parking structure, the debt service, O&M costs, and assuming there's some modest fees for usage of the structure, that still would generate in the magnitude of $2 million annually for various transportation improvements for public transportation, bike pedestrian, and the such, as well as marketing of transportation for the island. I did mention that staff's coordinating with other stakeholders. Outreach to the airport's already taken place. They've provided a slide that's in your presentation showing a decline of service in the Nantucket to Hyannis air taxi market. I think that's demonstrated in the slide that you see there, basically going from 200,000 to 25,000. So significant drop there, but what's increased is the large carrier seasonal service to other markets, that being the DC, New York, and Boston areas. That seems to be more of the niche and what is growing with the airport. What's also included in the presentation is 11 capital projects the airport looks to initiate in the short term. This does include complete reconstruction of some taxiways and runways, as well as replacement of lighting, which is incredibly expensive, but it's been made clear to me that that's not a burden onto the town, but rather in the existing operating budget of the airport. But authorization is needed from town meeting to expend those funds. Another recent coordination effort, and Mr. Chairman, you could probably speak to this as well, the coordination with the ferry providers. The existing plan does note some need to improve circulation and operations on the steamship terminal property itself. There are a number of sidewalk improvements that have been completed, and some improvements that still need to be completed in the vicinity. But there's also circulation, pickup, drop-off, taxi, Uber, Lyft, long-term parking options was definitely something that was noted as a huge need for the downtown area to park longer than 4 hours or even overnight in close vicinity to the ferry terminals. And so I've highlighted that here on this map as something that we need to continue to provide accommodations to our ferry users. Again, I'm recycling a map in the presentation of the last updating effort of where all of our capital improvements are. We do have a high cost to implement these projects, a lot of them in the magnitude of $2 or $3 million. You'll see in the chart here the budget that's been provided by Mass DOT for what we can anticipate in the long range transportation plan. It's in the neighborhood of, in these 4-year blocks, right about the same exact cost of what it costs to do one project. So you can see how there is a misalignment between the cost of projects and the budgets that we do receive. So we are heavily dependent upon discretionary funds provided by the state and federal programs, and as well as supplementing it maybe from local sources as well, because our regional target just is not conducive for construction of a lot of major projects. So there's a table of anticipated funds. This will be populated with recommendations on the far left of projects that we would like to see done based on and prioritize them and put them within a particular column of what year time frame we would like to see those projects implemented, but they would need to demonstrate financial constraint. What you will likely see is one project in each column, just to let you know, one project for each column to show financial conformance. As far as the vision and goals, there's not a lot to note here. There was one action at the last meeting about asking that goal 1D be added, limiting the volume of vehicles operating on the island's roadways. That would be an objective for the goal of reducing the number of vehicles on the island. So that's a change that's been added. And that's all I have to present to you at this meeting. I'm assuming the March and April meeting will be a little more detailed with projects and prioritization. But I'm happy to answer any questions about what's been presented so far.
Anyone have any questions? Just a couple of things, Mike. The meeting we had with Steamship and Highline and a few other parties, that was very good. But it does show that, like, we sort of, as I said, kind of working in reverse. The airport was at the airport for years. Mm-hmm. The airport wasn't on Straight Wharf till recently. Mm-hmm. So we don't have, where all the things we're doing, we should really just, it all seems so like, oh, wow, we've got all these problems with parking, but how could we not have a problem? You know what I mean? We never had parking in town, and now we have the fast ferries, which we never knew were coming. As early as 1994, we didn't know they were coming. So I think we're making great progress. I think there's a lot of great things that are happening and a lot of great potential things. So I don't look at it as we're making mistakes or we're doing anything wrong. I think we just, Mike, I think he might have hung up. Should I just press the answer?
Yeah, just answer it.
Derek, are you there?
Yeah, we got disconnected there.
Oh.
I wonder how long ago that was.
Just long enough for Derek to go
Only
get something
about
to
30
eat.
seconds ago.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Nat was saying some really intelligent things.
Yeah. I can't even believe I figured out how to answer the phone. I can't. It's the only time I use a landline is at this meeting. So, I think there's a lot of cooperation that's coming. Mm-hmm. It's continuing and getting better. And so, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying there's anything to unveil as some new big deal. It's just that we're getting better. It's just slow.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure you'll agree that I guess the themes or the takeaway from the coordination with the ferry terminals are the absolute need for more long-term parking. Yeah. The recognition that the ferry connector service did work. Yeah. And if that could be resurrected, that would be great. Also saying that while the NRT administrators in the room, and that the pedestrian access to and from the terminals has been great and is a work in progress and appreciated.
Yeah, this summer's sidewalk improvements, people are going to notice it in 2 seconds when they get off the boat. suitcases with the wheels.
It's
It's unbelievable.
great. It's
Well,
awesome.
wider, more people can move along.
Yeah.
One after the other.
And you can go around trees. You know, it's good.
Awesome.
So
Now,
Yes.
on that topic, what they can do in Hyannis and different places with, satellite parking and buying lots and everything they've done elsewhere, we don't have that option here.
No.
And so I think we can't be thinking, their solutions aren't going to
No,
work here.
that was
We-
brought up.
We need to move, and we can't build 250 spaces and think that they're going to all be long term, or even half of them can afford to be long term, because we're going to need those for turnover downtown. So I think what we really have to be thinking about is, how do you encourage people to get onto buses and do alternatives and use the boat that way? So that's the challenge I think we have.
Guys are-
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, but nonetheless, though, you need to be looking at a plan that looks into the future to begin to identify target areas
Exactly.
where you should be thinking about those things. Perfect example is the restaurant that sits right next door to the ferry terminal. That should and it has been identified, but again, you need to constantly keep that in the rearview mirror and say, okay, yeah, we still need to be looking at those things so that when the opportunities do arise, you're able to latch on to them. So that kind of planning, I think, is just as important, that has to come up, because it is, otherwise you're just assuming everything's a static bubble. It really isn't. People sell properties, and when those properties come up, you've got to be able to identify what it is and whether you need to act on it or not as well too. So again, I'm a little bit more we need to be looking at the 10, 20-year picture, and just have those targeted so that when they do come up, we at least know what to do with it at that stage.
I think the most important thing come out of that meeting is the AMP parking lot's going away someday. I mean, that's the big secret that isn't a secret, that we've taken advantage of since we were born, almost, Matt. And it's crazy. And 37 Washington, 39, this is a town issue, but these things are going to continue to develop as to, okay, what's the option here? What are we going to do? Saltmarsh Center. Something's going to happen to these properties that's going to benefit, whether it be parking, whether it be a short-term, long-term, like we're doing now, but more. So, I mean, that's what I meant. There's the partnership with the Highland and the Steamship, and now Harbor Place, I think, is developing, into something that's going to allow these things to happen with the town. As far as the piece of property that Barry just brought up, Steamship has tried to get in touch with that owner for the last month, and there's no.
Yeah.
I can tell you, Derek Schuster's a lot easier to get in touch with than him, and it's pretty tough. But I don't think anything's going to happen to that in the private sector. I think we're going to end up with it. It's just going to be how and when. So,
And at what cost? And then
It's-
worth turning it into a parking lot for $6 million.
well, I don't think that's going to be a parking lot. That's just
I
going to
don't
help
it's going to be a
process of the traveling down there and
Mhm.
walk pedestrians and everything else. So, but anyway, not to belabor that, I think we can bring up the vehicle issue, Mike, at the next meeting when everyone's here, talk about the language in that and maybe tweaking it a little bit, because it is a little not exactly what was proposed. And it scared a couple of people at our meeting yesterday to see that again, the way it was written. So we just I think we need to revisit that when we have Fritz here and Judith, so we can talk about that. Okay. So does anyone else have anything on this topic? We'll just move to the next. Which one is the next one, Mike? The funding allocation one?
Yeah, just
What page is that? I was looking for that.
page 60.
Okay.
Usually each quarter, I try to again adjust funding based on time that's used for some tasks versus others, and shift around the budget to better conform with time that's used with what's actually budgeted. So this does that. There's some funds from management and data collection that I'd like to shift over into planning activities, which are basically parking management.
Right.
There's a table in the and the plan that kind of shows where that time would go. But essentially, it is for parking management and for miscellaneous livable complete street projects that I've been working on. So,
So you need some action on changing those numbers?
I need your approval of this funding reallocation request.
I'll make a motion to make the funding
Yep.
allocation request.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Eleanor, thank you. Andrew made the second. I think he beat Barry by.
Oh, whatever. Not to I.
She was going to
not-
ask, so I think that's what I heard.
It's all good.
So anyway,
It's all good.
the tip schedule, Mike.
Yes, we just adjusted the 19 tip. We're already starting to create the 2020 tip, and staff's received federal funding that's available for this next tip cycle. I've attached a schedule of the funding in the packet on page 62. Staff has coordinated with DOT, including Derek Schuster and District 5 staff on the projects that we anticipate on programming into the tip. It should be known that there are no projects programmed in fiscal year 20, but there are multiple projects that are competing for funding in the out years. Those include the Bartlett Surfside, the Bartlett Surfside roundabout, the Milestone Rotary reconstruction, if Article 12 is approved, as well as the Milestone Road widening if Article 12 is approved. And also, if Article 16 of this annual town meeting is not approved, we would like to advance the Orange Street bike lane project as a federal aid project. Those are included as in the supplemental project list. The only one that's been programmed in the draft tip now for your review is the Surfside and Bartlett Road roundabout project for 2021. I should also note that in our budget for that particular year is a little over $500,000, and it's turning into a $3.5 million project. So we will ask DOT if there is other funding sources available that align with clean air and congestion management, which is how we had funded the phase 1 of the in-town bike path.
Wow. So you've gotten estimates for that? And we've already got all the land. So is that all part of it, or is that separate?
Correct.
This is just construction.
Just construction. That's the preliminary design estimate. We call it 25% design estimate that has to be done. And those costs are based on recent bid projects.
Yeah.
And I will note that some of the recent bids have come in incredibly high, which is why this price is incredibly high. We use the same unit prices. Those could adjust. But right now we have to go with the information that we have and what we know.
Now, if we get the approval for the supplemental funding for the Walnut bike path, and when does that, how would that plug in? Just curious.
We've already received some grant funds for Walnut. There's a second grant that we haven't received notification that we would receive funding on. Once we have received both funds, we would ask to program that project into the TIP. That very well could be our 2020 TIP project, the Walnut design.
Yeah.
But we haven't been notified that we've actually received those funds. We're also very dependent on the matching funds at this town meeting being approved.
Yeah.
If that's not approved, then we're still in limbo here with an approved grant that needs a 20% match.
That's what I meant when I said supplemental, the match at town meeting. Okay.
Correct. But there is a second grant that we're also seeking.
Okay.
I'll also note that there's an additional up to $1 million grant for Safe Routes to School projects, coordinating with Diane O'Neill and the superintendent of schools. They would like to see the crosswalk on Surfside Road relocated to a safer position with better street lighting. We've submitted a grant for that. We haven't been notified of whether we received that grant, but we did apply for a grant to do that project as well. That also is something that needs to be programmed into the TIP. That also could be our 2020
I thought
project.
that was getting done with the roundabout. They're moving it. That was brought up before. They wanted that one moved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of exactly how that was discussed. There was a discussion about walking from the Muse to the new Elementary being an issue to make sure that there was enough space.
It's a different crosswalk.
Different one?
That one is
Okay.
being incorporated into the Bartlett
Okay.
Surfside roundabout. This other crosswalk is outside of the project area for Four Corners. So it's
Okay.
between the two project areas, so it'll be its own project.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Where is it?
Now, which one is that, Mike?
It's-
I'm trying to
it's
think.
right by the entrance. Right now, there's a crosswalk at the entrance driveway. This project would shift it away from.
Oh, so this is by Tashma. This is at Tashma.
McLean.
McLean and Tashma. Okay. Okay.
If I need to look at a map, but yeah, I
No,
think
that's
you're
what
right.
those. That's right. Okay, Mike. I didn't realize that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's right at Vesper, isn't
He meant between
What?
Four Corners and Bartlett, so he meant that there's another crosswalk besides like the one at Vesper.
Exactly. It's an addition
Not
to the
talking
Vesper
about-
Lane
We
crosswalk.
move that telephone pole at Vesper, we'll fix everything. That's the
Mm.
biggest issue.
You're right.
Okay, Mike.
So this is informational. There are other meetings that need to take place at the April meeting and the May meeting. We actually need to at the April meeting we need to release the tip for public review. At the May meeting we need to approve the other tip.
Okay.
And that also stands true for the next item on the agenda, the UPWP.
Okay, so this is just informational then.
Correct.
Okay.
And to get your comments on any of these projects if you like or dislike any of them.
Oh, I'm pleased to see the Quidnet. You've marked Quidnet in red.
Yeah.
Oh, blue, whatever it is.
Okay.
That's awesome. I love that. So what else do we have, Mike? What's the next thing?
The next item is we did get our proposed budget for the 2020 UPWP. That budget is included in your packet on page 64. There's a little bit more funding available this year, $275,000 versus previous years. We will have about $20,000 for professional services that align with livable and complete streets. I don't have a project yet to use those professional services funds. It very well could align with the requested modeling or some other programs that have been proposed recently dealing with traffic analysis and parking utilization and mode split. This could be a source for those programs.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on the previous one or this one? I should have asked that before. Something I want to just add, Mike, to something that is on our right-of-way committee list that we've been talking about, and it's in your, I don't know where it is in the stuff. This Highland Ave to Sherburne Turnpike, Matt's idea about using the property owners and why you're making like a kind of a sidewalk, working with Rob, coming up with something. This taking that spot and separating that out as a town planning sort of neighbor, summer's coming. This spot to fix that would be big as far as visual and something that's really positive, like the sidewalks downtown.
Yeah.
That spot there is so bad.
Yeah.
And we have right of way. It's a lot of work, but the property owners, Matt's suggestion, he's the one that came up with the idea. They have landscapers. They have money. They would probably be happy to facilitate and be involved in that, either whether it's just financially or whether it's the labor part and we provide material or something, some kind of way to fix that one section, those baby carriages and all those people walking.
Sure.
And that one spot is so dangerous there.
If it's a gifting, obviously
I just
that's a
don't know
recommend.
how that can get done, but I know that it's on the list of town sort of fixing things, but
Yeah. No, it's
Yes.
absolutely identified project. If it's a
you
gifting
know
process, then I would imagine the neighbors could just approach the select board about gifting services, or we could have the
These-
discussion. But
these Thursday night meetings that have been being done,
Mhm.
that needs to be one of them somehow in the summer when they're here. Some kind of outreach. I bet you he could pull that off, and you could be there with sort of showing what we did before, sure, with the other bike path and what the plans have been and so forth.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I just wanted to bring that up because it was talked about Tuesday a lot at our meeting. And we've got one new member on there that asked about it. And it would be good for the town.
Mhm.
One of those, they come down for the summer and they see this fixed and
Yeah.
say, wow, they're getting something done.
No, it sounds like a great program. What's so critical with a lot of these public-private partnerships is a leader from the neighborhood to come forward, and that would be the person to coordinate with. And I don't know who that would be for that
I
neighborhood.
don't know if there's one
But
year round
it's
house
critical.
there. I don't think
I'm
there's
not
one.
sure there is the area you're talking. I don't know if there is.
Yeah. So,
But my other theory is I think a lot of the, if you picked one area and did it well, not just the short strip, but if you because I know that area, if you picked the cliff and said, here's how we're going to do the cliff from the top of the hill up, I think most of those people wouldn't mind being bettered.
yeah.
Usually we better people and everyone goes crazy. If you said you're going to pay another $100 a year, another $200 a year, and we're going to have this, look the way it's supposed to look and operate safer, so you're not going back and forth across the street 3 times to walk up to down.
Mm.
I think that would set the example that people would then say, hey, why don't you do that for my neighborhood? Well, we can, but you have to help us pay for it. We can get it done sooner. You help us pay for it. I think that would be the momentum for some of these things.
I was more thinking in line of like what happened with Hummock Pond, in that little spot there.
Finding one person.
With Highland Ave, there's only a few houses, but they're all in the same boat right there. That from Highland to Sherburne. There's that section of just complete, can't see a thing. Everybody's walking in the street. Those hedges, there's like a little guardrail thing in the bushes there on the right-hand side. And it wouldn't be that easy to do, but I think that they would all participate. As far as what Matt's saying, I don't know what betterments, if that's more confusing for the assessors and all that. I don't know how that would work either. I'm just bringing it up. That's all I'm doing.
Sure.
Just keeping it kind of alive. That's it.
Okay.
So anyway, so you don't need any action on anything else, right, Mike?
Those are informational.
Okay.
We do need action on the next item.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. We're not on Amelia Drive yet, though. We're on the budget, right?
No, we just shared the budget information. This is the Amelia Drive traffic study
Okay.
agreement.
Okay.
The agreement's in your packet for review. There is a March 7th, one of these Thursday meetings, a March 7th meeting just to discuss the Amelia Drive alternatives.
Yep.
A beta group who
Yep.
is doing the work for the Old South Road corridor and the South Shore Road area and some supplemental work for the Fairgrounds Old South Road area. This is their scope of work for the Amelia Drive portion of
They
the
already know
study.
what they're talking about with it.
Exactly. So their scope of work is in here, and basically includes a summary of their analysis they'll do, the options they'll develop, and the meetings they'll attend. What the action that's needed from this committee is to authorize the director to actually sign the agreement. The
That's
funding
good.
source is through Mass DOT. Garrett Schuster actually approved the funding. So
This isn't the state's paying for this?
this is through the UPW P3C program.
Wow. Okay.
I'll make the motion for the plain
Well,
driveway.
before we make that motion, I thought Jason was here.
No, he's gone.
Oh, he wasn't? I thought he might have been here for this. Sorry. Never mind. Because he's the.
But I'll
Bicycle
second it, but I
committee.
want to talk about
No,
something.
that's all right. Sorry, Barrett. I thought he was still here. So go ahead.
So I was making a motion for the planning director to execute the agreement with Beta.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll
No?
second, but I have a couple comments.
Okay.
The one question I had was, they're looking at, Amelia being two-way, one-way, on-street parking, no on-street. One thing I didn't see is any discussion of making, Wait Drive or some other companion drive. Like downtown, when they made one street one way, they made a companion street opposite way and studied
Oh.
that. And so I'm wondering, should that be part of this analysis? Because I think what will happen, if you look at that one way, one direction or the other right now, I think it's not going to look great.
Mhm.
My guess, just thinking what the numbers will be. But if you actually had a companion street,
Mhm.
Young's Way cut through or Wait came through or something, I think it would look better.
Yeah.
And so I'd hate to do something, I'd hate
That's
to do.
interesting. I never thought of that.
And so I would hate to do one thing like thinking that, we have to have it two-way and we have to spend all this money when actually maybe we don't have to have it two-way. Maybe we'd be smart to open up 2 or 3 other roads.
Yeah.
And get some more circulation through there.
Andrew, has weight drive been talked about as, I actually don't know. Was it one way from Tacoma to Old South?
It's
Or
not-
was it?
It's not finalized. I mean, it's still under design development.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, I mean, I don't,
Well, some of the
I
neighbors
get what
wanted
you're
to
talking
run
about.
away from them, you know.
no,
You're right.
is it going to connect to the existing entrance, right?
Well, right now it connects, it goes to a dead end right now.
Yeah.
But in the future, it will connect out to Old South Road. And then we're working on connections between.
With the two, yeah, we got that, right.
We just,
The spot, the marijuana
Yeah.
place.
And we want to encourage more of those interconnections. So, I mean, I do think that that's a critical part of looking at the one-way, options is.
Yeah, so I would like to, if we could amend this and throw in, a couple weight or some other, just so when they're running their stuff, they're running it with those things involved. I think it would be a little more informative for the
I can't make that 7th meeting either.
Yeah. We would know what the volume would be, the flow of traffic, the number of vehicles that would need to do something else, right? I think the idea is that they would use Fairgrounds Road as the one-way pair or spill over to that, but at least you would know the number and what
it is now. I know when I go to Manning's office, people who are more than halfway up Amelia Drive don't go back.
No,
They go up.
Go towards Tacoma now, because it's,
Tacoma and go
yeah.
over the
Right.
Well, that's, yes, yeah.
That's what happens now.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, one way in from Old South on Amelia would be the direction if you
Yes,
picked it.
for sure.
Exactly.
No question about that.
Pain to get back into it all.
It's just I didn't think about Waite Drive as the Ash Street, Ash Lane concept. I wasn't thinking of that.
Yeah.
Matt's bringing up. That's an interesting idea, and it has to develop.
Yeah, but
I think
exactly.
it has to kind of like run for a while before you figure it out. And Andrew, too, this is another thing. We're bringing this kind of thing up. There's going to be a lot of bites at the apple at the entrance of Young's Way, probably within the next 3 years, Andrew, 2, 3. I mean, sidewalk, there's a lot of land that's going to exchange hands there, the zoning. So when Matt mentioned Young's in as a sort of a spread out scenario is what you were thinking,
That's
right?
something. It's something.
That's going to
a lot
end
of
up
those have to
being
be connected.
that's going to end up being more used. And I'm just thinking about, because there's a lot of property there that's going to be changing hands in the next few years.
So there are Young's and an extension of Tacoma to continue that public road network. Of probably
Yeah.
going to be in order.
Love is getting paved.
The problem I see is we have so much congestion on Old South Road now. We're trying to put roundabouts here and there. If we bring another street in there, it's just going to add to the congestion.
Yeah, but I
I'm
think
thinking about with weight, it makes more sense to leave the existing fairgrounds as the route. If Amelia Drive is one way up, and then you go over to Tacoma and come around on Fairgrounds, eventually we're going to have a roundabout at Fairgrounds in Old South Road.
I think what Matt was talking about is having less cars trying to come out onto Old South to take a left. Crossing over the road is the key to not having Amelia. It's really tough. I don't even do it in the summer.
No.
I get it. Just take a right. It's ridiculous to try.
Go around and come back on Fairgrounds.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, Mike, this is good. I'm really glad that we got Beta to come back because they already know what they're doing. Did they give us a discount because they already know what they're doing?
The good news is when we
Oh, the
bid
state
the
discount?
original Old South Road corridor study, their fee was so low that
they've
with the cost
just
of
left.
this work and the supplemental work they've already done, it's still below the other competitive bids that we got. So they're actually a very good value.
That's excellent. That's great news. Okay.
Did we actually do the vote?
You did not vote.
We did not vote yet.
Right.
So does anyone want to make a motion to endorse
already
this?
did.
Sorry.
Oh, no, Matt seconded it.
And
Never
I
mind.
asked if we could add those
That's right.
into it.
Yep.
Is that something that can be
We
added?
added that language in there, or no? So just for them to
Ancillary
consider,
roads? Yeah,
it could be brought up at the meeting.
I think it could be brought up at the meeting, quite honestly, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Without
okay.
As long as I
making
understand
any-
that it's going to be brought up and it'll be looked at.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
I don't want to be doing.
I'll send an email to Rob McNeil.
Yeah, because I sent
and
Nat.
copy you on that.
I sent Nat, and you can share it, but I sent him an article about a grid pattern, and it was a really good article explaining how a grid street is much more effective than one road and a lot of roundabouts. And it showed how if that one road has an issue, then everybody slowed down everywhere. Where you have a grid and one road is out of commission, you still got the rest of your grid. And it shows it in math and in a really simple explanation. And I think that's how we have to really be thinking about it. So if you want to forward that along.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, just hearing the Waite Drive idea, I wasn't even really thinking about Waite Drive. I'm worried about the parking on Waite Drive more than I am about the cut through. But it's an interesting point. And we don't have to blow up Amelia Drive tomorrow to fix it. There may be a way to try one way for one season, which we brought up at planning on one of the projects on Amelia. I just don't remember which one. I think it was was it the restaurant? I mean, was it the store?
Yeah, I think it was the
I think
store.
it was the store.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think we talked about it with something else, but I don't remember. And we were talking about having summertime one way, winter two, like we did with the stop signs and the plastic bags. Remember, just to try it, because we don't know until we try it.
Yeah.
But Mike, you're going to be at the 7th meeting.
Yes.
Okay, good. So just keep this filed away. 'Cause I can't be there. I'm going to a Bruins game, cheap one. So I'm kind of excited about that. So anyway, there was Matt seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay. Okay, what else do we have now? Other committee reports.
Different
Wait.
Okay.
Is there other business or is that?
Oh, I don't know. Lee, do you have anything? What were you here for? You told me, and I can't even remember. The mitigation plan. No, Holly's here for the mitigation plan. Okay.
I'm gonna get some of those drugs for mine.
Jeez.
Jerry, can you fix them up?
I can't remember what Lee told me already. Okay, Holly, thank you for coming. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to let the board know about our meeting that we are going to be doing with the public. And I appreciate your email.
Yeah, thanks.
I did get it.
My garbled phone
Not
message
a
too.
problem. Want to take anything and we get, we'll help with it. But as you're aware, the Board of Selectmen has asked us to get some more comments, get those addressed. We're going to be hopefully getting it wrapped up. So we'll be all set hopefully for the March 6th meeting, which will need you to be there. So, but this coming up Tuesday is optional. If you want to be there, great. Obviously let Eleanor know, but we'd love to have any comments you may have. Hopefully we'll make everybody happy. But the first and foremost is to draw the line and get it submitted for that final stamp so we can move in a forward direction. That's the biggest thing. So just
Good.
wanted to show my presence.
No, it was the presentation the other night was eye-opening. And what happened, and did Andrew's comment help? Because
Yes.
that was the kind of the sticky issue.
It still is. Some of the comments I did receive today, so I'm not too sure how we're going to make them everybody happy on that particular issue. But the climate has changed, I think, at the end of the day since the original plan in 2007 about that particular issue.
Yeah, good.
So
Okay.
hopefully we can move forward in a good direction. So.
Okay, so we're gonna post a joint meeting or post our meeting, right, Eleanor, for the 6th?
26, just in case 6 people show up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a quorum requirement meeting, it's
Yeah.
just in case.
Right.
And I will post
For the 6th, for sure.
6.
There'll probably be
as a joint
6 people
meeting, and
there.
hopefully we will get a quorum because
Yeah.
Barry
Don't tease me.
did arrive, but after
The discussion,
Yeah,
yeah.
just-
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Holly, for all your work on this, and it's a thankless.
Well, thank
Thanks.
you for being the sponsor. I don't know if you know the NPUC, you are the sponsor. So, and through me and through us as staff, we're trying to get this wrapped up for the town. So.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I would just encourage people to attend on the 6th. I know that there were conflicts and I appreciate those who couldn't come
I'm gonna
for
be
whatever
there.
reason, but there's so much work that's gone into this and I emailed everybody just before this meeting, I actually forwarded an email from Holly with a link that has, takes you to a place on the town website with a lot of information, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Andrew.
Holly has done a great job on this.
Mhm.
When this started, this was being run by Mr. Franzio
Right.
at emergency management. And, Holly by default ended up sort of shouldering a lot more work on this than far more work than was originally
Anticipated.
interested in this, and and that's great. But it was something she and I have had several conversations about again, we wanted to get this led to conclusion, but this didn't start with us. It started with that other department, and then things changed.
But it's, the thing is, I learned a lot just talking to her the other day. I didn't even know it started in 2000. I thought this was something that was more recent.
Correct.
So that seems like
The
a long time ago.
Management, the
So,
Disaster Act of 2000, and in Massachusetts, I want to say it took a couple of years before Mass actually decided to do it.
yeah.
So a couple other places have actually had plans.
Yeah.
We just kind of fell, and we want to move forward from the 2012 and get this approved, and we'll be available to funding. But we're also working on other things, and I think we have a good direction too from the administration that it's not just a planning document. It's a living, breathing document that's going to be used in the entire town-wide.
Okay.
So we're working with other departments to make sure that we're crossing those T's, dotting our I's, and moving forward. So
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Holly.
thank you.
Thank you. Mark your calendars.
Mhm.
We can all make it, or at least 6 of us anyway. So does anyone else have anything? Staff reports, other business, committee reports?
One quick committee report.
Yes.
BPAC met yesterday. One of the articles that was discussed is the bike path article that is coming to town meeting. And I think that this body should discuss it prior to town meeting.
Which one? Right?
This is the one that's talking about,
71.
which article number is it?
I think it's 71.
71?
Yeah.
The Tom Neville one?
No, it's,
The bicycle right of way.
yeah.
Data.
Oh, the one.
Data collection right away.
Ian Williams.
Ian Golding's article,
Ian's
yeah.
article, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the right of way and the data collection, the right of ways, and and it doesn't have a great recommendation from staff from town. And it looks like the police have written it, sort of saying it's going to cost a lot of money and how are we going to do it, et cetera. But I think there's some people a lot of the bikers feel very passionately that the bike path itself is a traveled way and deserves to be treated as a traveled way. And someone entering it should not be entering it at 15, 20 miles an hour without looking. And so we have to change, to make it safer, we have to change. And if we want people to use alternatives, we have to change the culture, and making some signage changes and making some, common sense changes here would go a long way to making it a lot safer. Anyone that's biked a little.
It's baby steps. I mean, making signage, awareness.
Well, but some of it is
the brush back.
But cutting the brush is really important and it's great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the fact that right now, if you try to ride your bike down there, the cars don't have to stop. There's no signage for them, even though it's a travel way and they're supposed to. There's no signage. And the bikes, sometimes you stop 30 times. If you stopped at every little stop sign,
you're talking about like Popus Road with like North Pasture.
Yeah.
Well,
when there was the area where the guy was hit and killed.
Yeah.
Everyone that's ridden their bike regularly has been hit, run into a car, or been nearly hit. It's just it's an everyday occurrence in the summertime. If you talk to the hospital staff, the stories are incredible.
Yeah.
They can't give you names, but they'll tell you they've got 3, 4, 5 people a day. One lady off with head trauma was hit with the side of a box truck mirror. No one even stopped for her. Left the island, had trauma, probably never the same. You don't hear that. It doesn't make the newspaper because it's not popular. It's not, it might hurt tourism, but the reality is it's really pretty dangerous. And so the mentality has to change somewhat. One of the other points that he has in his article is, giving bikes a 2-foot or a 3-foot buffer if you're passing them, and not passing them if you don't. Nat, you talk about that all the time. People should not be
No, you
passing
shouldn't pass a bicycle
in certain
Up
places.
to Marine Lumber,
Yep,
up to East Creek Road.
and that's what his article's asking.
Seriously.
And
It's
it
like
might
insane.
parts of it illegal, parts of it might not be, but it should be fleshed out. And at least we all as a body should talk about it and maybe make an amendment, make an adjustment to it. But at
I
least
think
get
that
this-
some of the stuff I can see where the chief would be, the word shall's in here an awful lot.
Yep.
But the right of way aspect, the signage, I mean, we're teaching people how not to use a straw. We can certainly get people to stop in front of a bike path. I mean, right? If there was an effort with this, like there is with straws, we'd already have it fixed. I'm sorry, but I'm still annoyed at that. Crazy. So, the basic principle of what he's saying is right. There may be some issues with administration and data and some of that, but as far as those roads on Pulpus are tough. I mean, North Pasture is dangerous.
Yep.
Pulling through there.
Well, maybe-
You're cruising on your bike. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, bikes should stop." I don't agree with that. A bike can't stop at every single spot a road crosses a bike path. You wouldn't even be on your bike.
Yeah,
You'd be so tired
What
from
should
pedaling.
what
You
should
wouldn't
ha-
even be able to do
what
it.
should happen is bikes should stop at Tom
Be
Nevers
more
and
aware.
Dionis,
Well, that's
Tom
different.
Nevers,
Oh, yeah.
and they should have a stop sign and they should have to stop and they should get ticketed when they don't.
Yeah.
But at all these other places, it's a nuisance and they don't pay attention to it after a while.
Yeah.
They become a nuisance and then they ignore the big ones. And that's when, the problems happen.
Yeah.
And so
No.
I just think that if this board would, would make a, recommendation or modify it and make a recommendation, it would really help at town meeting.
Andrew, can we do that? Is it too late? Print?
It's too late for print, but
It's going to, I mean,
Is FinCom doing this?
our finance committee motions are the ones that are printed. And the
Right.
planning board on Zoom.
Yeah.
But we do annually have a discussion about articles of planning concern.
Yeah.
And we do
I mean, this is
take-
definitely an NPDC type article.
Yeah, we can.
We're the
publish
ones
that.
that created the bike committee.
And we can also propose an amendment, so.
I mean, I think we should. I don't have any. I mean, I'm not the type of person to come up with edits and stuff, but I can see where some of the stuff is maybe going a little too far as far as the police department data recording, nurses, and all that stuff. I think it's more about.
it's something like that. That's what they
Think of it as
That's
you,
just-
Mike, signage and like your little bike painting and things like that. We already have a DPW director that's been cutting so much brush back. I'm surprised there hasn't been any complaints about it. I mean, they're going haywire. But at least the stuff's going to be growing in before spring because they are really doing some mowing. It's unbelievable. I've never seen so much. So at the same time, though, that combined with awareness and better signage. I don't know.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman. We did talk about it at traffic safety this morning.
There you go.
There is some conformity with state law.
With this article?
Yeah, it's non-conformance. And quite honestly, this would almost be a better article if it was a petition to the state to the draft
So
legislation.
this is like the 20-mile-an-hour thing. You can't enforce it unless you change it.
Quite honestly, yes. Because right now
Yeah.
pedestrians have access into the right of way through a crosswalk. The crosswalk is by virtue of it being a crosswalk, it's a stop sign. If there's a pedestrian in it, it now functions as a stop sign. It doesn't function that way for bicyclists. If a bicyclist is in the crosswalk, there's not necessarily the same rights given to a bicyclist as a pedestrian. And that's a state rule that needs to change in order for it to be locally enforceable. There also is draft legislation for passing zones, but that's not approved just yet. And that's something that would be the enforceability of that's in question because there isn't a state law that addresses that. So a lot of this really the change needs to happen with state law so that we can actually do the enforcement here locally, which is unfortunate, but that's the takeaway that we had at traffic safety.
Yeah, and Ian has hired an attorney who does this stuff day after day and argues that it is state law already, that it's a travel way. So there's I understand your understanding of it, and I understand, traffic safety's understanding of it, which is kind of how we got where we are. But I think it might be arguable on the other side too. And we should at least have someone look into that, and maybe Ian will have that attorney. He's probably going to have him at town meeting. He may have him for this body to go through his points on it. And I think it's worth looking at it to see if there are maybe, sometimes the law isn't as clear cut as people tell you it is, because, for whatever reason.
And another thing too is the way we do,
sometimes it isn't.
Massachusetts law's confusing.
the way we are in Nantucket,
It's a
if
mess.
people walk the way they do here in the real world, they'd be run over. So we just step into the street. So we have different ways of doing things here. So there's a lot, always going to be.
Signal to go left when you're going straight.
That's right. We do that all the time. In Union Street, you got to flip your left direction on to go straight. So it's, but I can see what Matt's point now. I get it. There's probably a whole bunch of things that don't fit with the state or whoever said that.
Well, I think it's not even a Nantucket thing. It's a, there are, it's a reading of the various laws and the conflicts in the various, laws. And I don't think it may be as clear cut.
So, Mike, what's your thought as I didn't realize you were talking about this at traffic safety, so that gets into more.
No, we were asked
detail.
for an opinion. Harvey Young and Ian Golding asked that be put on the traffic safety agenda. So we did talk about it, and it was good because I got some clarity from the police chief on his interpretation of state law and how he has to apply the statute to local regulations and enforcement. And that's just unfortunate, but that's where the law needs to change in order for it to be applicable.
So
locally.
is this one of these that needs to come back with more work? God, I hate saying it with something like this. It's kind of sensitive. But at the same time, that's what it sounds like. I mean, other than signage and other things, I'm talking about the legal part.
Yeah.
Needs work.
I think there are questions.
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing that there are questions.
Yeah.
But even the signage, if you look at the bike paths, the signage in some areas is completely different somewhere else.
Yeah.
Some place has tons of little signs that bikers have to follow, and in some areas there's none.
Yeah.
Some places the driveways have stop signs. Other roads do. Other places there aren't. It depended what year it was put in, who drew it up, what signs have gone. It's a mishmash. So even if we were going with our current rules of the bike path versus the road, they're not consistent. So even if we were going to say, well, we'll keep it the way it is, it's not really, doesn't make any sense now. So, so there's things we could do to improve it, and we really should try.
John, I'm going to look to you. You came up with the idea of straightening up the end of Tom Nevers Road, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
You got any ideas here? Because we're going to be here all night. I just got to know
my
hot
head
water.
has been racking thinking about, I grew up in New Jersey, learned how to drive in Jersey City and Manhattan. And I told my two boys when I taught them how to drive on Nantucket, let your moms teach you. Because this is crazy. This is, you have to make two stops before you make a right hand or a left hand turn. And, and that's where we're getting into all these. And I'm stuck at that. So I just don't know how we condition people. And then when I think about Pulpus Road, trying to turn into your own driveway, you're worried about somebody really on your tail,
a car
rear-ending
behind
you. So you have to turn, but then you have to now stop before
right
the
away.
bike path, and then and it's really
I just
the way
did it
we
going onto
position
Drew
the
Lane
driveways and
today.
the roads
Like
and
the dump.
Perfect
so
spot.
it's it is a
Drew Lane.
quandary.
Right after
I just there's too many obstacles where it's
Be a good
work in
traffic
process.
But what you just described is exactly what happens. The cars worry about other cars. They worry about another car hitting them. They don't worry. They don't even think about a walker or a biker, because a walker or a biker is not going to hurt them. It's not going to scratch their pretty vehicle. That and that's it's not quite that far. It isn't that far. But when they pull out, honestly, when you sit over here and watch the bike path on Fairgrounds, someday just sit and watch how people react. They go right through the stop sign before the bike path.
Rugged Road's a good spot.
Rugged Road. Sit in my employee parking lot there for a half hour and watch. The cars go right through the stop sign, right through it. Then they stop and they look. They don't look before most of them don't look. Yeah. And that's with a school there. And the same thing when you're biking out out in Pulpus, they go right through the bike path, Nantucket, right through the bike path like it isn't there. Then they stop. Yeah. And one of the times I got hit, I'm biking along. I think he sees me. He pulls right in front of me. I tried to stop, slammed right into the side of it. And I was going 50 miles an hour. I was, and I should have been, there's no way I could have stopped. He had a stop sign, didn't bother. Right. So that's what you have to deal with. And I think that's, anyway.
Also hesitant about signage because
if you start thinking of how many signs you'll need, a stop for the bikers going, stop this way,
Yeah.
stop, and then for the other person coming in off the road, and then what are you going to put a stop sign as somebody's leaving their own driveway, stop, and then go there.
Yeah,
Now the entire island is littered with all these little stop signs.
And what he's talking about is getting rid of the driveway ones, and getting rid of all the nuisance bike ones, and enforcing the most serious ones, and putting the burden on the cars to not, if they're crossing a traveled way, to look both ways. If you're on Pulpus, I'll use that, and you have to turn in your driveway and you don't have a little shelter before the bike path, you should be tapping your brakes half a mile before, slowing way down, and then pulling in. And make the people behind you slow down. As opposed to going into that thing at 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And Nat drives like that because he knows.
The Pulpus Road driveways on the right it's the best example on the whole island.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of them. But if that bike path wasn't set back as far as it is, you'd have a problem. Because people would have to be stopping in the road to turn. But the North Pasture one, the only reason I bring that one up all the time is because when you are pulling out of North Pasture, not in is easy because the bad part, you can see the bike coming from the left. But when you're pulling back onto Pulpus, that bicycle is cruising pretty good because it's downhill there and there's very little vision and you have to stop. You really stick your head forward to look. It's bad there, Mike.
I know it. Yeah.
But anyway, we could talk about this for hours.
But I would say this should be on the agenda.
What do you think we should do, Andrew, about a recommendation? This is something, we can't write something favoring something that's not legal, but we could give encouraging wording with sort of, I don't know. Is that possible?
I recommend a home rule petition, or there might be something else.
What about fall? Coming back for the fall and with better language. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Honestly, if the state draft statutes are approved at some point later on the spring, early into the summer, there may be an opt-in to some of these statutes. So that might be something for the fall town meeting to accept the new statute, like we did with the speed limits. You had to opt in.
Because this is like that 25 thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know that will be the case. I'm just saying that may be something that's necessary.
Okay. Well, do we have enough time to wait till the next meeting to talk about this or no?
Yeah, our next meeting, we're gonna review all by then, final recommendations gonna be in for everybody.
Okay.
That's what we usually do is.
All right. So we could come up with something, maybe some language that we could do.
I would say invite him and let him have their say.
All right. That's good. Can you do that, Mike? Can you get Ian to come? Sure. Okay. That would be great. So that's it.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? Thank you. Thank you, Derek.